Well, good evening. I'm so glad you could join us tonight for C3. I'm excited tonight because I have a special guest that is willing to join us this evening. Her name is Kelly Wild, and I will introduce Kelly in a second. I just want to remind everybody that this past weekend was our first weekend back to in-person worship. It went well. We were able to do everything and practice social distancing and keep everybody safe. And we'll be back at it again this weekend. Don't forget you have to sign up. So I invite you to go to the church website, christumc.net/worship, and you can sign up in order to come to worship this weekend. And of course, we have our online worship always available. So we invite you, if you're not comfortable coming out just yet, to join us for our online worship as well. As we were playing the slides on the way beforehand, Kelly and I haven't seen each other for a little while. Kelly and I have known each other for a while, so we were talking. I got a text message from somebody who shall remain nameless to remind me that the mics were on. So you might have heard us laughing a little bit, but that's just because we go way back. We actually graduated from seminary together back in 2009.
Yeah, you got old, I didn't.
I got old and you didn't, that's right. Except you are like my older sister, so it's a good thing.
Yes, which makes me much wiser than
That's
you too.
true too. I will say it was my first graduate degree. It was like Kelly's fourth graduate degree. She's got all kinds of degrees and has all kinds of experience, and it pays off well in her ministry. If you are joining us tonight online and you're on the church website, I want to invite you, if you're able, to jump on Facebook, and then you can shoot questions our way. Kelly will be glad to answer any questions that you have. But like I said, we were ordained together. We went to England together. We were a handful back then, just like we are now. They never let us sit together because we'd interrupt class. But here we are, all these years later, still doing ministry, still loving what we're doing.
And still interrupting things.
And still interrupting things and enjoying each other's time. So that's a little bit about how long I've known you and where we've come from. But tell us a little bit about you, so the people that are logging on tonight or watching later on this week know who you are, your family, your background, a little bit of that.
Okay, well, as Chris said, that could be a lot about that because I don't like to stay out of school, so it's been a while. But so let me start with family. My mom goes to this church, Lynn Johnson, so she gives Chris a hard time for me when I'm not here to do it myself. And then married to a wonderful man named Michael. We've been married, how long now? It'll be 32 years.
Nice.
Sometime in November, the 5th, I think.
Yeah, that's good.
I should know that.
You have time
but
to figure it out.
Yeah, I can look at my ring. So anyway, 2 boys, Matthew and Douglas. Matthew is 24 and Douglas is just turned 23. Last year I forgot his birthday, so that's why I'm having a hard time even remembering how old they are. And he will not let me forget that.
There you go.
But we live in the North Hills, and we have a wonderful puppy. He's not a puppy, he's 8, but he acts like a puppy. Moose, who is a therapy dog, goes to work with me. So just a little bit, I went to Canon-McMillan for high school, so grew up in the South Hills, then went to Allegheny College, then to Thomas Jefferson University, then to Duquesne University, and then finally to Pittsburgh Theological. So I've got a few degrees along the way. Background, I'm physical therapist, attorney, and now pastor. Mm-hmm. So when I was in law school, the joke was, because I also worked on an ambulance as an EMT because I wasn't busy enough. And the joke was I could save you, rehabilitate you, and then sue myself for all of it.
There you go.
So now I can save you, rehabilitate you, sue myself, and bless the whole process.
And then bury you at the end. Yeah. So Kelly works at East End Cooperative Ministry, which is in East Liberty. And tell us a little bit about East End Cooperative Ministry and your work there. Not like everything you do, but
yeah, because that would take up the whole half an hour.
Exactly.
So, well, East End Cooperative Ministry, otherwise known as EECM, is a place that I've been now for 8.5 years. We've got really 3 main program areas to that. One is children and youth, and they work with students in school or right now out of school in the Pittsburgh schools in the East End, and they help the students really with understanding character development, and there's more to life than what they might be seeing in the neighborhoods that they live in. And then also we'll follow the kids into college and into young adulthood as well. We have community nutrition services, and with that we have a food pantry, and we also serve a community lunch 5 days a week. And then there's the program I oversee, which is the Impacts program, and that involves all of our housing programs and services for people that are experiencing homelessness. And then we also offer education and employment programs where we work on life skill development, pre-employment services, as well as then employment services. And I've built that program up quite a bit from when it first started. And then we also have a sewing production that we do for small batch manufacturing, and have used that as a training program as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Our UMW.
Yes.
Our UMW did this is from your sewing program from, I don't know how many years ago. It was a few years ago.
A couple of years ago, yeah, with Gina Moore.
And a lot of people in our church have these.
I have one.
And they came from that
Yes, from the program.
Mm-hmm. So if you have one of these at home, you know where that came from, and they were supported by our UMW. We have a history of working with East End Cooperative Mission. The Angel Tree that we do, White Gifts, you may know it as, but the Angel Tree that we do, that some of that goes to East End Cooperative. A portion of our mission tithe from our capital campaign is going to East End Cooperative Mission. Ministry, sorry.
That's okay.
That ministry.
That's why I'm wiser.
That's why you're wiser. And we have people that volunteer and tutor and help with meals and all kinds of different things that go on at East End Cooperative Ministry. So tell us a little bit about how some of the support can be helpful to what you are doing at East End Cooperative.
Like innumerable ways.
Okay.
Quite frankly, I want to start with one of the things that Chris didn't mention, which personally I find the most supportive, and that is really the prayers that I know that I get from folks here, from the church, and just the support, just to know that I have United Methodist brothers and sisters that are understand what I do and support the work that I do down there, because it really is mission work, as Chris liked to keep calling it missions. But in a tangible, I guess more tangible way, the gifts from the White Gifts, the Angel Tree, we have people that show up and have nothing. They have no clothes. So when we get socks and underwear and stuff, it allows people to have just things that you don't even think about, normal things like socks and underwear. The toiletries that we get, the bus passes that are donated through Gifts of Cash, that we're able to get bus passes, allow people to get to appointments, that allow people to get to work. When folks first start a job, they haven't been paid yet, but how do you get back and forth to work so that you can get paid? You have to have a bus pass. So gifts from here have helped us to do that. The support with the sewing program and having us sew allowed people to be trained for employment, as well as bringing revenue into the agency. So it just goes on and on. When we were selling the coffee, we were able to sell coffee through here as well. When you had the craft fair, we had a table with the products from actually our clients that learned to sew. We brought them, and they were able to display the stuff that they had developed on their own afterwards. So I could continue, but I won't.
Well, and you provide housing in a place, and the way you provide housing is a little different than some of the other organizations that provide housing. I know when we called you about a specific person to try to get some help with housing. One of the issues they were having in some of the other places is they were trying to work, but while they were working, they weren't able to get in line to get a bed for housing.
Yes.
Yours is a little different.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit.
And that's really important.
About that.
One of the things with East End, and that I found really important, especially from where I was to working in East End, was that if folks would work overnight, they really had no shelter to stay in, because when they're working overnight, other shelters close during the day, and we used to as well. But where do you go if you work overnight and you don't have a home? What are you supposed to do? You have to quit work. Well, if you quit work, how are you ever supposed to get your own place? Because now you don't have an income. So we changed how we operated the shelter so that we're open 24 hours a day. We'll stay open 24 hours a day so somebody can work. We also operate our shelter that once you have a bed, it is your bed until you need to leave, which could be for numerous reasons. And that could be that you found housing, you've done nothing, and it's time for somebody else to have a bed, or, like just many reasons.
Sure.
The goal, though, is to help everybody get housed in one way, shape, or form. And so we want to remove as many barriers as we can
Right.
for that, because when you're homeless or find yourself living in poverty, I mean, the barriers that there are to being able to get back on your own feet are just tremendous. And most people never even think about it because they're just not barriers for us. And you would never even think about it until you are involved with folks who actually have those experiences.
Well, and you talk about being open 24 hours a day for that purpose. What does a normal day look like?
I don't know. When I have a normal day, I'll let you know because there isn't one.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what today looked like.
Today, well, things are slightly different now because of COVID than they have been. But if I could describe a typical day that I have, I usually get to work between 6 and 7 in the morning because I don't sleep. And so I might as well go into work. And then once the folks, because in the building where I work, we have 51 beds. And so people live where I work. And where my office is, I have people living on both sides of where my office is. And so it gets really interesting when you work where people live because they have access to you unless you have really good boundaries. So, I mean, it's just most of the time, and part of the reason I like to get to work early is I do get a little bit of quiet time that I can at least get set up for the day.
Sure.
But like today, that didn't happen. Yesterday, that didn't happen. And Monday, that didn't happen because the knocks on my door started very early. Sometimes my day starts as soon as I walk into the building and talk with a security guard, and all of a sudden people know that Reverend Kelly's here, and so it's like this rush to come see me. It's like, no, I need my coffee. You need to wait. But my days are just really all over the place. Like my responsibility as the director of this program is really from program development, grant writing, reporting, tracking things. I'm also the Salesforce administrator for our case management software that we do with Salesforce. I'm like, how come I'm the Salesforce administrator? To dealing with client issues, to supervision. It's just between the phone and the email and the doors. I joked often and says to my staff, I need to put a ticket machine outside of my door because I will have people lined up to come in. So I will a lot of times say, you know what, I'm going to go home because I have to get some work done.
Right.
Other than putting out fires.
Yeah.
So, but I love it because as somebody with some pretty good ADHD, it's fun because there's a whole lot of squirrels running around, and that keeps my brain entertained.
And it's different all the time.
Yeah, it's different every day.
Now you brought up COVID and how that has affected things, and it's affected things for everybody. How has it affected some of the services that you all do?
Well, as I had mentioned earlier, with the children and youth program, obviously the kids left school in March or April, whenever that was. I don't have school-age kids. It wasn't
March 15th.
Thank you.
I do have school-age kids.
You see the difference in what you experience and what you know. So, they've had to figure out how do they keep working with the kids, online through a whole bunch of different stuff and how they're supporting now that school's hybrid and all those other things. The community nutrition services, the community lunch used to be served in our dining room. It's now all to go. So people come by, we have the meals packed up, and it's all done outside. The food pantry is also now outside. We have a tent put up and people come through there. So we're limiting folks that are in the building. From my perspective, how things have changed is, before COVID, we had a curfew and it was at dinner time. And, as long as you were back by curfew, it was fine. Or if you had, a late pass to be out if you were working or something. But since COVID started, and because of all of the risks there are and all of the people that don't think masking and social distancing and washing your hands are important, which I can't figure out for the life of me, we had to limit people's comings and goings and how often people were leaving the building and what were you going to do. So we've actually restricted some of that to, you have to have a reason, an essential reason to be out in the community. And so that's really curtailed a lot of the movement. And it's been interesting. I think a lot of our clients think when I leave, like I go live the life of Riley. And it's like, no, I leave here, I go home. Mm-hmm. I leave home, I come here. I'm not out having fun and going places either. This is hard for all of us. And then having to wear a mask pretty much all day long, because you're around people. And then I walk around all day long saying to our clients, as well as some of the staff, put your mask on, please. Your mask needs to cover your nose and your mouth. You breathe through both. No, you cannot be a chin breather. Please pull your mask up. I understand you forgot it. Please go get it and put it back on.
Right.
And so I say that in my sleep now. So it's changed. Our funding streams have been modified. I don't think there's a piece of the agency that it hasn't touched. A few of our staff have had to be there every day. We didn't get to work from home.
Right.
Some of my staff and some of the staff of EECM could work from home. But those of us that work with the folks that live in that building, we can't shut down.
Right.
I mean, we've got people that live there. So, it's been scary at times and hairy at times because of that. But we've kind of settled into a rhythm with it. But looking forward to it being over at some point.
Now, you said there hasn't been one area where it hasn't affected. I would say that the one area that it probably hasn't affected is how you treat your people and how you try to instill respect for who they are. And I've known you for a long time. I've known you before you started working for East End Cooperative. And one of the things that we've talked about before is how language is so important. And you hate the term homeless and you hate the term addict. And it just makes your skin crawl.
You can see that.
And can you help us maybe understand what is a more appropriate way to talk about that?
People.
To talk about people in that aspect. That would be, to me, one of the areas that hasn't changed with COVID, is how you look at people.
So folks that know me or might be involved with me in different committees, been around me long enough. I'm sure a number of folks here at this church have heard me say this, is it's about people first language, because language matters. It's not, people are too sensitive or being politically correct, get over it. No, language matters, because when you're told something about yourself often enough, then you start to believe it. If you're told you're useless often enough, you're worthless, you start to believe that. And so that's why I don't like the phrase homeless people or the homeless, because that takes that person's entire self, their entire existence, and encapsulates it in the word homeless. Homeless is simply their housing situation. It doesn't define them. It's a state of being for them for this moment about their housing only. And so, one of the things I say is I've never called you a housed person. So why, when somebody is without housing, does that become their key defining characteristic? It's like, one of my pet peeves is when somebody says female clergy, because that implies clergy is something other than female. And so you have to modify it. So we don't walk around saying male clergy. It's like when we say male nurse. that implies nurse means female. So it's not just,
It's just language in general.
it's all over the place. You know, the other thing is saying, oh, they're an LGBTQIA plus person. No, they're a person. That happens to be part of who they are, but they're a person. Don't define people. It's labeling people by stuff that, you know, no, if you want to label everybody, label them children of God. End
Good
of-
place to start.
End of story.
End of story. And go from there. Go from there. That's really good advice for people to have.
Yeah.
I think, no matter what area.
Yeah, imagine that. We're all created in the image of God, irrespective of any label we want to put on
That's right.
each other.
So when you work in outside of the church, but you're in a nonprofit or you're in a group that does ministry, inner city or whatever, a lot of times there's misconceptions about the people that you work with and the people that you serve. What would you say is probably the biggest misconception of the clientele that you serve from people that aren't that clientele? You know what I mean? From those of us that are not in that every day.
Yeah, I think, you know, to answer that, I'd want to define that a little bit more. So for folks that have not really had any experience with the people that I work with, I mean, the folks that come and use the emergency shelter or in our recovery house program or even our permanent supportive housing program or come for meals, they're people from all different walks of life. I've had attorneys, I've had doctors, I've had people with more degrees than I have and have become homeless for so many different reasons. But so many people think it's all about drugs and mental health. Not true. It's as varied as there are people in this world. And so it's just one of those, don't judge anybody or assume you know anybody's story by the outside or the circumstances that you see them in. Because getting to know somebody's story is so very important, and you have no understanding of that person until you've taken the time to listen to their narrative. But that means you have to take the time and not just judge somebody. It's so much easier to just judge folks as, you know, people that are homeless are lazy or they don't care or blah. That's not true.
Labels are easy.
Yeah.
Labels. Relationships
are hard.
Relationships are hard. That goes for any area, not just the folks that you work with.
Yeah. And the other thing, you know, you had mentioned urban. Urban's code word. Be careful with that word.
Well, I was doing that intentionally.
Yes, I know.
Because
urban also makes me go when people say, oh, you're in urban. It's like, no. Because people then equate urban with, especially around Pittsburgh, can equate urban meaning black and poor.
That could.
So many times. And, you know, that's not true.
Right.
And so, again, labels.
Well, and the things that you're dealing with where you are in East Liberty, there are those same kinds of things in
everywhere.
Suburbia. There are same kinds of things in rural. It's everywhere.
Well,
it just is all how it looks.
You know, well, I guess probably like 4 blocks away in one direction, you have a studio apartment going for $2,000 a month.
Right.
And you go 4 blocks in this direction and you have, you know, closed up building and, you know, abject poverty, and the dichotomy is really interesting. And so one of the things that I encourage anybody that's come to East Liberty to do, especially with all of the gentrification happening and the changes, if you walk down one section of Penn Avenue between Center Avenue and Highland, and you walk down that one section, if you're walking towards the city, on your right-hand side is Old East Liberty. It's got the Dollar General. It's got the different shoe stores.
Right.
It's got the wig store.
Yeah.
If you look on the other side of the road, exactly across the street, it's got the Abercrombie and Fitch, the I don't know, whatever those fancy French cookies are the Milkshake Factory. I mean, just turn your head.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my gosh, the stark difference just speaks to what's happening and how this is coming in, which means this gets pushed out. Stop it.
Yeah.
We all need to live together.
So I think what's going to happen with this particular session that we have, I think a lot of people are going to watch this later on, because one of the things that's happening right now as of 8 o'clock is the vice presidential debate.
Yes.
So I'm sure
That's why he wanted me to come on tonight.
I'm sure there are a lot of people that are going to be watching that.
Yes, I would like to. I'm going to watch that.
Yeah, and people will tune in later for this. So as we close, what would you like our congregation to know that we may not be aware of when it comes to East End Cooperative Ministry?
It's a good thing you put that little caveat on there about what I would like people to know about East End Cooperative Ministry.
I said I've known you a long time.
Yes, there's a lot of things I would like people to know about, but that's a time for another one of these
And
sessions.
how could we pray for you?
Okay.
Maybe that would be
Okay.
to go with it.
Okay. So what might people not know
Or
is
what would you like us to know?
what I would like you to know. I would like for you to come down and meet people.
Okay.
I would like for folks that, oh, dare I say this? Yeah, what the heck? People that tend to like to blame poor people for being poor to come down and actually get to know some folks and understand people's stories.
Hear the story.
And that kind of stuff. I would like people to know that, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, people are people. We're all God's creation, and people have feelings and families, and are part of families and part of all of us. And so community matters.
Yep.
And so we have to really know that and expand our communities outside of our comfort zones and people that look like us.
Yeah.
So,
And what can we pray for you and for East End?
For East End, I would absolutely say pray for those that we serve.
Okay.
Because people are in tough situations. I mean, folks that use their services are struggling with something. Be it just getting enough food on their table because Social Security doesn't cover squat.
Right.
Nor does food stamps. But hey, that's another topic. So anyway, I think just praying for the folks there, praying for the staff. The stress the staff has been under with this has just been tremendous, especially with COVID. That they just continue to have strength and health as well. For me, I guess part of it would be pray for my sanity between now and the results.
Yeah. Sure.
Of I find myself being profoundly sad a lot, and so I could use some prayers to just keep getting up every day and not pulling the covers up over my head and saying I can't do this. This world's just becoming something I don't know. I mean, this country too. It's like I don't know this place anymore.
Right.
And I think we have to pray that people will recognize and see and know that we have to end oppression of any kind. That's what Christ did. That's what he called us to do. I mean, that's why he was crucified, because he was trying to stop the powers and the principalities, and they weren't having it. I feel like we're there.
And one of the things I say regularly is you never look at a person who Jesus didn't die for.
Yeah.
And that's how that's how we need to view people.
Yes, and sometimes that's really hard.
It is. So we can definitely be praying for that. We're all on the same page there. Well, thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate you coming out. We were going to do this remotely, but you happened to be in the South Hills visiting your mother, and you were willing to stop by, so I greatly appreciate that. Thank you for joining us, or thank you for watching following the debate or later on this week. We are glad that you are in support, and we will continue to support East End Cooperative Ministry. And Gina Mar can help you. I can help you. Others can help you get down there and meet people and hear their stories. You heard Kelly talk a lot about relationships, but the bottom line is, in any area, relationships are what is most important. So take that as a challenge. To build relationships with the people that you come across, so they don't just look like a statistic, they look like a person. I pray that God goes with you. I pray you have a great week, and we will see you on Friday morning for a devotion on C3, and then in worship over the weekend, either online or in person. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon. God bless.